in my experience as an attorney, but now even as an employer, it's like you never know when you're on the employee side just how many sacrifices an employer is making and how hard they're fighting to make ends meet. And the entitlement to expect things to just be so structured when we live in a country where things aren't structured.
Like if people just have so much opinion about how things should be done, how the system should do things, then it's just like, okay, go and set up your own entity.
Exactly.
And be the employer, since you're so like informed and knowledgeable about employment issues and being an employer, that you are assuming a posture of expert. Go and start an entity and employ people.
You know, sometimes it's like we're being mean, but it's like the things that we see on a daily basis as employers.
Yeah.
It's wild.
The Sapiosexual Platter.
I met a young man a couple of weeks ago. He was 24 years old, full of ideas, so intelligent. And he was unemployed. And I just asked him, I was like, what are you doing at the current moment? Like, what are you doing? What idea are you executing? And he was like, nothing. You know, I'm waiting for something to come up. And it was just so confusing because it filled me with a lot of sadness of so much potential and so much sitting on talents, all because you're waiting for somebody to employ you, yet you're a very resourceful person. And that's what we'll be talking about today on the Sapiosexual Platter. We're going to be talking about the state of unemployment and really building the capacity for accountability. My name is Balsa Abo Ame.
I am Shatani Samalagai.
Welcome to
the Sapiosexual Platter. Yay.
Yeah. A continuation from our interview on radio.
Yeah.
About this topic, because we were called to talk about just the state of unemployment on a general level. And you know, it's a conversation that triggers me.
Yeah.
For so many years it has triggered me because I felt like people just move with a lot of entitlement because they have degrees, qualifications, CV. It's like they feel like they should be given opportunities. But it's just a qualification, a credential. It's not, it's a potential. It's not evidence or proof of what you can achieve.
100.
And the results you can actually give. And even just outside of that, I just think in the country, it has affected our work ethic as young people. People are not hardworking anymore. People are just sitting.
Yeah.
They're just sitting. Like there's so much to do out there, but people sit.
Yeah.
And they wait for somebody to employ them.
100. But I want us to start with, you know, an acknowledgement.
Yeah.
You know, because
of course
you know, this is one of those topics where I'm always afraid to talk about.
Yeah.
Because I'm the product of employment and I've never not had an opportunity to work.
Yeah.
Like I interned when I was at university. I had different jobs as well, aside from my legal internships. And then I already knew where I was going to work before I graduated.
Yeah.
So for the life of me, I cannot fathom a world or understand a world where that isn't an option for someone. So I want to start off with that, like, no judgment. And to also not downplay my own privilege in having had opportunities that some now have difficulty accessing.
Yeah.
But with that said, you know, all of us are always placed with different life variables. And the life variable and the life challenge of the Botswana person today is unemployment.
Yeah.
And it's important to, while, you know, I don't want us to talk about, you know, just the systemic problems, because those will be there. Now we have to get to a point where reality check, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And because it is what it is, you have to ask yourself what it is that you can do to empower yourself.
Exactly.
And that's everything my friend has been saying.
Yeah, I like that you're saying that, because I want people to know that this is not a judgment, but more an inquiry into the status quo of the huge unemployment statistics, and for us to just build ourselves to come out of it. Because I think too much of the conversation is often on the systematic issues.
Yeah, on the government, you know, on the employers, even on the employers. And I want to talk about that even.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're an employment queen.
Yeah, no. No, because I realized that.
No, I mean employment power.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, I get it.
The queen of employment
yes,
power.
Yes, exactly. You thought I was shading you.
Yeah, no, I know you.
I am quite shady sometimes.
In my experience as an attorney, but now even as an employer, it's like you never know when you're on the employee side just how many sacrifices an employer is making and how hard they're fighting to make ends meet.
Yeah.
And the entitlement to expect things to just be so structured when we live in a country where things aren't structured. The inability to make the connection between if businesses are failing because government is paying late, and if businesses aren't paid, which, you know, has a direct bearing on the bottom line, how can you be expecting, you know, salaries? You know, how can you be expecting that you're not retrenched? You know, it's even that, the expectation of just that there should just be jobs all over the place. I'm like, well, you do realize that the economy, you know, is where it's at, and that doesn't affect you as an employee. It more than you as an employee, it directly impacts the employer.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, you can proceed. Just wanted to say.
No. Expand it.
I just wanted to say.
So what is your message?
There's, like, as you're saying, there's a lot of focus on what government isn't doing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of focus on what employers aren't doing or what they should be doing and how they should be cushioning things and how they should just be providing. And the number of people that just come into my office, knock on the door, and I'm like, babes, this is where we are right now.
Yeah.
You know, and just the look of, really, there's no spot? Like, really, there isn't.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because if the economy is the way that it is, it's not just affecting you who's jobless. It's also affecting us who are hustling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me, from what you just said, it's like if people just have so much opinion about how things should be done, how the system should do things, the leadership should do things, the employer should do things, then it's just like, okay, go and set up your own entity.
Exactly.
And be the employer, since you're so like informed and knowledgeable about employment issues and being an employer that you are, to give your unsolicited advice, assuming a posture of expert. Go and start an entity and employ people. Then after that, apply all the things, the advice that you keep giving on social media. Then come back to us and tell us how it is to start up an entity and become an employer. For me, it's like I get the different struggles of unemployment, but I want us to sort of center the conversation around cultivating a certain mindset that when the audience is done watching or listening to us, they come out of it, that unemployed person comes out of it and accelerates themselves to start a business. Why do you think we don't have an entrepreneurial culture in Botswana? Why is it that there's so many talented people? In terms of our population, the largest number is youth. And then there's also huge youth unemployment. What is it about us that we're able to mobilize ourselves as the youth and do something? What is it about the culture of the people that they're unable to just become entrepreneurs?
I don't know. Botswana Haba, they don't want. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Oraya.
I mean, it's comfort, but beyond comfort, it's like, but what do you want? You know, I remember one time at my parents' church when I was, there's a time I did like a series every week, and I used to motivate the students. So it was like on a Saturday, and I asked them, what do you want?
Yeah.
They couldn't answer that question. I had to do a series on cultivating a desire for anything. Like, how do you just cultivate this? Like, they couldn't say, I want a car. They couldn't say what kind of car. Like, do you know how sometimes, you know, those vision board exercises can be a difficult thing to teach because people don't even know what they want.
Yeah.
You know, so it's almost us always imposing like, you should be employed or you should be an entrepreneur or well, they just don't want anything.
Yeah.
So I just think I've met a lot of people where I'm like, wow, you really
don't want.
You really don't want. How bad? I don't know where to begin because it's better when somebody comes and says, I want to be this, and then I can give you the tools of how to be this.
Yeah.
But if you don't even want it and I'm telling you to want it, then it's
you can't make somebody want what they don't want.
You want something that you don't want.
What is it about our people, our culture, and our way of living that makes people not want?
I think definitely comfort. Because I know that, you know, there's talks of poverty and like, you know, definitely we could be living a higher standard, but it's still comfortable relative to other places.
Yeah.
You know, there's a safety, you're able to eat, you know, a meal a day, you know, these little things or big things, you know, that we think are little, but they're big. And if there was, I would imagine like if there was absolutely nothing and you know what it meant to have nothing.
And not like nothing for
like
a while.
Nothing for real, like for a while.
Not just one day or
not
2
one
days.
day, but consistently so. Maybe I think, but maybe I also tend to be a sufferist in that sometimes I think you just need to suffer a bit in order to see a different perspective, and like we're trying to learn a different way, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes I really do think like plenty and not recognizing how plenty it is in a sense. Definitely contributes to that.
Yeah. One other thing I would say contributes to the state from what I've observed is definitely the huge part, or you always say education.
Oh, of course.
I think the source of not wanting comes from that comfort that you speak about, but I also just think the education system doesn't cultivate people to want to be employers. It's like tsamao go na le degree ngwanake o to batle tiro o tlo hirwe go company e big, you know, from just the household, from our, you know, the family structure that builds you. Even for me when I was growing up, it's like you're motivated to go to school and do well so that you can get good employment. And there's a huge culture of that. It's like we're stuck in a time where we were still in the ideologies or in the energy of colonialization, where it wasn't as easy to get certain things. Because I know with the history of entrepreneurship in the country and how it started, there was a time where licenses were not allowed for Botswana, like people. So Botswana, they were not allowed to sell on the road. So there were some regulators who used to go around in street vendors to make sure that it's not street vendors Botswana, I think.
Oh, wow. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, somebody told me that history one time when I traveled somewhere, and I was like, wow, that is so fascinating. It's nice to know the history of entrepreneurship. So I think because of those regulations that the Botswana person in that time wasn't allowed to hold a certain stance in society, that was the foundation of where can we go, what can we do. And people, the only thing is to be employed because you're not allowed to trade.
Enterprise,
or to enterprise. Though we're out of it and it's many years later, it's like people are not having the conversation to say, okay, now we're allowed to have the trade licenses. Now we're allowed to trade. Surely all of us can't all be employed as the 2.3 million people in the country. And it's too deep to want like 80% of the people to want employment and then just the very few to enterprise. It's quite extreme.
Yeah.
Like it's quite extreme. And even when you just look at the conversations of, the government should employ us, the government should employ us, a huge part of why we are here also is over dependency. The government has done so much. Back in the day, it had to do a lot for the people that we've gotten to a point where we don't know how to do for ourselves because everything has just been done for us.
Yeah.
So you don't realize that the muscle keeps decaying over time because you're not tapping into your ability to be resourceful. You're not tapping into your ability to think, to imagine, to cultivate a different reality. And we're keeping ourselves stuck in an old frame, in an old paradigm, in an old identity without awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. I always think somebody has to imagine, what if all those things that you rely on weren't operational? Then what?
Then what?
Then what?
Yeah.
You know?
Self-sufficiency.
And the reality is that's where we are.
Yeah.
It's like the concept is there. You have a government, but it can only do so much. So technically it's not there, you know. But somehow you are fooling your mind to believe that it's there, you know. And the quicker you wake up to the reality of it's there, but not to the degree that it was there for your parents and your great-grandparents, then I think you can wake up.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know. Hey, it's working.
It's so layered.
This topic, guys.
So layered.
You know, but, you know, we have this topic because the reality is the potential is there and it's huge, you know.
Yeah.
Another one is just the fact that it's too linear. I think people want to do one thing and the idea of just being multifaceted and trying here. Because even the people who are employed, for me, it's like, but why? Good, that's all they do.
Yeah.
Like that's the one job they do, and then they go home and they watch TV, and then they go to work the next day to do that one job. And it's like, are you trying other things?
Yeah.
Are you trying other hustles? Moholing serious. It's moholing just, you know.
Yeah.
Hobby.
A
Hobby. Let me make a few tabs to have money for entertainment, but like really like actively building like a muscle to the point where you once talk about the whole unicorn concept. And so I also find that quite interesting as well, to see how people are so devoted to one area. Yeah. And they put their eggs in that one basket, that one job.
Yeah. And when they lose it,
that's the end of their life.
Oh my God.
I'm like, but why would you have done that though? So many years on one thing, doing one thing, pouring all your because that's also what's led to the high rates of unemployment. It's not just the people who leave school and don't have jobs. Yeah. There's the people where when they become redundant or when their companies close down, you know, then that's the end. It's like, for example, the whole BCL situation. Yeah. And one mine closes, an entire town dies. And that was peak where Francistown, got all surrounding areas. Yeah. To say like we really all had our eggs in
that. And talk about the diamonds. We had our eggs in the
basket.
And they're not buying the diamonds. And we're out here.
So people are watching and their emotions are rising because you want a solution. Yeah. And you know, and it's a thing that I can't tell you what to do, because that's the other thing. Yeah. It's like wanting me or whoever's talking to give you like a step by step. What if I told you that there is no manual? Yeah. Because I don't know your circumstances. I don't know the degree of your circumstances. But you know your circumstances. And you know your potential and you know your capability. Yeah. Only you can see the gaps. Yeah. In a way that you can give a solution to, if that makes any sense. Like I see gaps, and I feel like the reason I can see those gaps is because I can be the solution to those gaps. Exactly. So I can't identify a gap and expect Belle to fill that gap. Yeah. Which is what usually happening when we're having these seminars and people are expecting somebody to give you answers. Like, well, I don't have answers, but I know that you have the answers. Yeah. But somehow,
so how do we unlock the answers in the people?
Really, to be honest, guys, nobody has the answers. As they always say, nobody's coming to save you. And it's just the truth. Yeah. You know? And for me, it's... we could write the manuals, guys, 10 steps to, and sell them, make money selling them to you. But oftentimes, the solution is inside of yourself, you know? you know your capabilities.
Yeah.
You know what you can fix in your society, because that's what entrepreneurship is, finding a gap and filling that gap.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, of course you need to be assisted. You need to know a few things about taxes, laws, whatever, all of that. But fundamentally, if that muscle of just to wake up and try and to do and to get out there and solve a problem, provide a service, if that isn't intrinsically within yourself, there's only so much, you know, resourcing that we can do. That's why I feel like all these wasida and all these layers and aren't working, because you're trying to resource somebody whose core with relation to what they're doing hasn't been, the foundation isn't strong.
Yeah.
It's not there, you know. So when they come upon hard times, you know, there's nothing to spring them back up to, okay, I lost the X. You used to have the kind of attitude where, like, even if you lose here, you know that you can try something else. There's no giving up in this game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, I don't know. You know what I mean? That's what you really need to cultivate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read something here that said something to the effect that unemployment doesn't always mean joblessness. It often means lack of visible, recognized opportunities. And one thing that I've realized about the culture is that it doesn't value informal work. So people are unemployed not because they don't have jobs, but because they can't even have the muscle to spot opportunity
Like fathom.
in the environment.
For sure.
And I'll give a story. The other time I was looking for a gate for a client of mine. Client asked me, design a gate, and then go and outsource it for me. I go around and I look for the gate people. I get there. I said, I want a 4-meter gate. They're like, oh, it's 8,000 pula. I was shocked. I was like, gates? When did gates become this pricey? And then I started negotiating, like, no, that's too expensive. What do you mean 8,000? So now we start negotiating, and I ask them, what's the cost for the material? What's the cost for labor? The cost for material was like maybe 3 point something, and the rest was for labor.
Oh, wow.
And a gate takes like 2 days, 3 days max to make. So I calculated, I was like, wow, if I engage this person, and mind you, the people who are doing the gates are mostly foreigners. And I was like, if I engage this person to do this gate and they take 3 days, that means they've made 3.5 or 4,000 pula towards labor in 3 days. Yet a Botswana person would be looking for a job at a retailer to be paid 1.8, 2,000 every single month. Mind you, going to that place 6 times a week. All in the name of saying, at least I've got a job. And yet somebody is welding. If he gets a gate from me, a gate from you, at least gets 4 customers.
If you can do 2 gates a week.
2 gates a week.
Yeah.
4 in a month.
Yeah.
Minimum.
That's like about 6K a week. 6 times 4, that's what, 24,000.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I would put it at maybe like 1 gate a week because of our population.
Yeah, even then, that's
Even that,
3 times 4.
that's
That's
half,
12,000.
12,000.
That's 12,000.
So I was like, wow. And I was looking at
12,000 on 2 days. Basically, 8 days of the month.
8 days of work.
Which means that the other days, which they can be doing
other things
and
and
making
earning
money
from different things.
Yes.
And I was like, wow. And I looked at it because I was like, in the informal sector, it doesn't fit within systematic structures. So that money goes unaccounted for, also goes untaxed, because you'll pay them cash. The foreigners, they'll say, no, we just take cash. You'll pay them cash. And I was just like, wow. And you go to different vendors and all of them are foreigners. Then you're just like, a Botswana person could be a welder and be earning 12,000 a month. But we don't have a culture of valuing informal work. It's like when people want employment, they want to be in certain fields or jobs that are deemed to have a certain level of prestige, that they then allow the qualification to create a sense of haze that is entitled.
Yeah.
That you are then unable to really just make money.
That's true. I think for me, it's like, what's the goal here?
Exactly.
What's the goal?
What's the goal?
Is the goal to make money, to have money, or is the goal to have prestige and status?
Thank you.
Yeah, and and I think that's a hard question to ask yourself, because if the goal is to make money, trust me, there are so many ways to make money that have absolutely nothing to do with prestige. There's things that I do where you just like, okay, but I do them because I know that at the end of the day, bottom line, money.
Yeah.
Which is what moves things.
Yeah.
Status versus money.
That's
Status
it.
versus money.
Let's kill
I
the
think
prestige culture.
if people were real about that, if you had an awareness of, because I even talked about it, like say with my house help.
Yeah.
Because she does my house and different other houses. And I'm thinking, if we're all paying her an average of this amount,
Yeah.
she's actually making more than a lot of people in the formal sector. Literally. Just coming in, making
And
sure
cleaning.
my house is clean, washing the dishes, cleaning the shoes. And she's done in like 2-3 hours. She leaves and she's made more money.
Yeah.
And she has time to do other things.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you're crying about unemployment, but you won't take being a housekeeper.
And being strategic about it to say, how can I be this housekeeper and have different earnings?
Yeah.
Be going to all these different households, charging 1.2 there, 1.2, 1.2, 1.2. Those 1.2 become something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also experience, because I guess the argument would be, well, I'm not getting any experience from doing all these things. And I would argue otherwise. You are getting a lot of experience. You're getting exposure, depending on the kinds of houses that you work at.
Yeah.
I used to babysit when I was in varsity in high school, and the kind of families that I babysat from, I learned so much just watching them.
Yeah.
The way that they used to operate and the way that they used to do things and the things that they had, and like, oh, when we leave, do this, Chitani, and then do that. There's so much that I learned that I never would have learned at a workplace, but I learned from them, because when they come back, they share the projects that they're working on and different things that they're doing with their kids. I'm like, oh, this is what you can do with a baby. Oh, I didn't know this. You know? So I'm like, I think you can actually learn something. Say if you're a housekeeper and you're serving certain clientele about how they do things and how they order their lives. Yeah. And you can also build your network from that, in fact. And
to add on to that, the time that I used to be very active as a makeup artist, it used to be so amazing, because I would go to the rich of the country and their houses. And it put a lot of imagination, a lot into my imagination.
100.
Because I'll get to this people's house and I'm like, wow, there are people who live
like this. Yeah.
If I was in an office somewhere, I wouldn't know that people are living like this. And it gives me a lot in my mind and builds my visualization, my thinking in terms of what I'm going to create
and what life can be.
Yes, what life can be, literally. Yeah. But
and then also the ability to kind of manage all of that, because another issue that employers face is like employees' ability to like manage time. Sometimes you're supervising someone and you're like, why did this take 3 hours?
Yeah.
Why is this taking 5 hours? But then when you learn, like, okay, fine, I have to be at this house from 8 to 10 so that I can make, 1.5. And then I'm at this house and then you manage all of the logistics of, okay, how do I make sure cab-wise, all these different things. There's so many skills that you're learning unconsciously that you don't realize, in terms of time management, being resourceful, being able to get the best out of the place, coming up with a strategy. Maybe I should work at houses, go face for hella, instead of,
commuting to different
locations. That is business. Because that's what I've had to do in my business, where you just learn about how to organize a day in such a way that you get the most out of it. So I feel like just taking the little, for me, it's like, if there's somebody who's making X amount, like you're saying, and it's like, all I need to do to make that amount is to do this simple thing, do it.
Yeah, literally.
And start there and build a base. And the more you build a base, you'll be surprised how those skills come in handy when you finally get the so-called job that you want. Which, by the way, it's also overrated, because people aren't even happy at work.
Yeah.
So that's why I always find I'm just
The
like
paradox.
you guys are wild in that sense. Like, let's be honest about how wild you are.
People are said in that job.
Isabella bate ditiro, and then you're unhappy about what it's from 8 to 5, and then you see the memes on social media about, like, you know, the way people are happy when they knock off, and the way it's Friday and Thursday, yay, whatever, all of that. And I'm like, y'all are crying for things that you don't want anyway, that you go to, and you end up spending your whole time on social media. So I'm like, do you really want a job? Like, is that what you really want?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, what do you want?
Yeah.
You know, because a job has its comforts, but it definitely has its discomforts and its disadvantages, and a way that it does something to you and your thinking that I'm like, y'all are, in the end, you're not even happy about it. And then you're not happy about the way your employer is treating you, and then you want more money, and it's just like, guys, guys.
Because I think one other thing that is exhausting and tiring is just the lack of professionalism in the country. I don't know if we need to do like a mass course on professionalism, but the state is appalling, down to the ones who are employed, but even worse with the people who are unemployed and in the informal structure. It's like moto.
Yeah, like
that.
Yeah. I remember giving a lecture to a few students that came to my firm asking for internship and others for jobs. And I was like,
this is how you're coming to ask for a job?
You're a law student.
Yeah.
And I had a Devil Wears Prada Miranda moment where, like...
Trust you?
No, it was wild because she was there asking me for a job and she didn't know who I was.
Yeah.
And I was like, so you don't know me?
Hey,
so why are you asking for a job from me if you don't know me?
Yeah.
Like, the first thing you want to do is actually Google... someone like an associate's proprietor is, they deal in. So I just sat her down for 5 minutes and I said, babes, like, if this is your approach, I don't know that you're going to get that internship. There are people who are getting internships. I don't know if you're going to get it.
Yeah.
Because you want to know the place where you're going to be employed.
Yeah.
You want to know the people that run the place that you want to be employed at.
Yeah.
And so, you know, sometimes it's like we're being mean, but it's like the things that we see on a daily basis as employers.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah, it's hectic. I think I want another issue in relation to what you're saying, and also professionalism, is how also when people want employment or these jobs, they respect jobs that are from big corporations.
Yeah.
Or from foreigners, like from Indians, Chinese. Because it's always just so interesting how when you go to like Chinese or Indians entities and you see how devoted the Botswana person is, and then you ask like, how much are you getting? And then you're surprised, like, you're getting so little and you're that devoted, versus when they're employed by a Botswana. Worse, even when it's a young woman. We see things out in these streets, radibona. And it's that attitude for me where it's just like, you want employment, but when it's a fellow Motswana like you, and then how le batswa kwa gona le respect nyana, gona le an abiding to structure, because some things I think I experienced them because ke Motswana ke monana. But I think the dynamics would be very different if the person was employed by an Asian or a white person. And for me, it's just like, okay, you guys want employment. There's some of us who are actually trying to create the employment. But when we do experience you, the professionalism is just decayed. It's too casual. And I'm like, would you show up at another entity like that? Recently, I had an interview with a girl who even triggered me when it comes to entrepreneurship. And she was meant to come in and do social media marketing and management, and also just production work. She reaches out to me. She's like, oh, you don't have jobs. I'm like, sure, come. I was like, why did you think of me? She's like, I was thinking about somebody who can employ me, and you popped to mind. I was like, okay, great. It must be divine, surely. You know, this psychic connection. She comes. T-shirt, I mean, when Shatangi came and I was in the middle of the interview, she actually thought that this person was interviewing to be a cleaner as opposed to an executive marketer. And she came in, she's like, oh, maybe she's, interviewing for a nanny or a cleaner. And she left. And then when she heard, like, no, it's an executive marketer. And when you know my organization and the type of clientele that it deals with, surely you're not going to come to Bell Cyber Consultants for an interview dressed the way that you're dressed. And I had a conversation with the girl. I said, you see how I'm dressed? I prepared for you. I'm taking this seriously. The way that you are even showing up, you dress how you want to be addressed. And I don't know what you're communicating with the way that you're dressed and how I'm meant to address you.
Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable. It's really uncomfortable. And people just don't know that place. They don't know hierarchy. They don't know structure. Down to just even when you just see with leadership, people don't know how to behave towards leadership. You go to countries like Kenya, you go to countries like Nigeria. People who understand order, hierarchy, and structure. It's not to say you are any less. Servitude doesn't mean you are any less than the person. It just means that we're all trying to build an ecosystem that is healthy for everybody. And it takes us interacting within certain rules and plays that make the interaction comfortable. But what I've even
productive,
you know. But what I've realized is that in the country, especially with the creative sector, especially with like certain entities, I'll say like a lot of maybe government entities at a lower level or lower title structures, the culture is just so deeply eroded. But they don't understand customer service. They don't understand that they are serving. And there's a certain posture you assume when you're serving. There's a certain humility and keenness and kindness, sweetness to the client to make sure that the experience is nice for them. Even now with the things that I do, I would have the vendors come and tell me about how I should want my product to be. And I'm like, are you the client or I'm the client? You can't come and dictate to me. If I tell you I want this thing straight, you can't tell me like, let me make it wavy because doing it wavy is best. If I say I want it straight, give it to me straight, not wavy. But you would find that in this country, somebody will then argue back and forth with you about how you should accept the thing as wavy. And when you do that, or when you don't conform, rather, when you don't do that, when you don't conform to what they're requesting, we sort of have gotten to a place where we chastise excellence.
Yeah. Oof, I feel that one. Yeah, no, it's true. Hey, got these standards. I think standards in Botswana, it's a difficult one because, like I say, I always try and run away from this topic because I always feel like a sense of, oh, you're saying this from a place of privilege. But hey, guys, we need to up our standards.
Yeah.
Hey?
I'll tell you, I'm not speaking from a place of privilege. I'm speaking from a place of realism. I'm a law graduate with a whole international development master's. Done at 22, I became a makeup artist and an entrepreneur. Trust and believe I'm not speaking from privilege because I've seen it all. I have worked, I have done construction. I'm there mixing with the people. So I'm not even, I know that I'm highly privileged, but I'm not even speaking from a place of privilege. I'm speaking from a place of exposure and experience where I'm like, this is actually quite bad.
Yeah.
It's bad. And it's so hard to trade in this country, unfortunately, because of that culture. It's so complex to be an entrepreneur because of that culture, because then it's like you need 3 times the force to do business than you would in any other country.
Do you know what really upsets me? It's what people get out of a degree. Because I've never understood, like the thing you said at the beginning, a degree is not a qualification.
It's a qualification.
Sorry, yeah, a degree is not a job. It's not just because you have a degree doesn't mean anything is automatic.
Yeah.
Do you understand that?
Yeah.
That's what I've never understood that. I always thought like you do a degree because you're thinking in the grand scheme of your life.
Yeah.
This is going to help me propel to this place. But not just because I have it, but because I have certain qualities that it's supposed to bring out of me. So if you study for 4 years and after 4 years you have bad communication skills or you have bad literacy with computers or there's just certain
bad research
skills, what have you been doing? Like, I think that's the thing that always perturbs me. And that's why I was talking about the law students who came to my office. And I was like, 5 years and you don't know how an attorney dresses, I don't know what I'm supposed to do for you.
Yeah.
Because surely when you decided that you're going to do law, shouldn't you have Googled lawyers? I don't think you would have seen a picture of a lawyer that's not dressed professionally.
Yeah.
I don't know them. I don't know one. You know, so I'm like, at the very least, you know, like, this is how lawyers present.
Yeah.
And so I don't understand how it is that you study for 5 years and then you came here dressed, wearing, I'm not even exaggerating, short skirt, tank top, super chilled. And I'm just like, wow, babes.
Yeah, looking for a job.
You know, so I think, you know what, guys, we're calling to let this equation make sense. You know, you have absolutely every right to dream. You have absolutely every right to want the things that you want. But you have to ask yourself, what contribution are you making to the unemployment that you are experiencing? It may not be the system after all. It may not be government after all. It may not be the employers after all. It might just be you. And so you have a task and a half. But we believe in you and would love to see the change in Botswana. So we hope you enjoyed that dialogue. And we will actually be inviting you guys very soon to interact with us. My name is Shatani Samalakai.
And I'm Belsabo Ame.
You've been watching
The Sapiosexual Platter.